Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, and the book I want to share today is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is a very interesting book, and every time I read it, I had different opinions, different reflections. I read it many years ago when my reasoning or thinking was quite binary, so I had a really wrong idea about the book. So back then, I used to think this book is about reflecting and criticizing uh, the lavish lifestyle and the self-indulgence and like fantasies, things you should not do. Because the main character, Dorian Gray, he did indulge himself, and in the book, he sinned and he got punished, and he didn't have a good ending. So that was I was thinking back in the days, but now I realize how mistaken I was. This book is not about preaching. This book is not reflecting the things. Well, sort of, but it has so many other layers as well. So let's go back to the major storyline. This book is about another iconic trio. It's always good when there's a trio. So Dorian Gray being the main protagonist, and he has two important friends. One is the Lord Henry, another one is the Basil, who's the painter who painted the picture of Dorian Gray. And the three of them have very distinct personalities. Basil, I would say, is the one who have better moral standards. So in his values, belief systems, there are wrongs, there are rights, and he tried to advise Dorian Gray to be a better man, a better member of society. On the contrary, Lord Henry was pretty evil or a bad influence in the book. He preached or he advised Dorian Gray to do many wrong things. He's very cynical. He thinks nothing matters, like fidelity in marriage didn't matter, and also society rules didn't matter. Just go for the pleasure. That's what I read of from him. So I will read some paragraphs about these three characters for you to get a gist of them. The first character I want to introduce would be Basil, the painter. This painter has a really interesting story in the book. One thing I noticed reading this time is he was trying to hide his painting. He didn't want to present his painting in an exhibition. Okay, so here's his words. Every portrait that is painted with feeling is a portrait of the artist, not of the sitter. The sitter is merely an accident, the occasion. It is not him who is reviewed by the painter. It is rather the painter who, on the colored canvas, reviewed himself. The reason I will not exhibit this picture is that I am afraid that I have shown it the secret of my own soul. So he's hiding his painting because he's hiding his own identities and desires. He had restrained himself. That's a very interesting observation I made this time. So I think from this, we can already tell we are not bracing for Basil's morality, or we are not. This book is not about preaching moral standards at all. Okay, the second paragraph I want to read is about Dorian Gray. This is about he broke the engagement with Sybil, the first girl he met in the play, and he really liked her, so he proposed. But at one play, that girl performed really badly, and he's really disappointed, and he wasn't interested in getting the marriage with her anymore, and so he basically left her. But then he reflected. He started to think that it's wrong, and he did want some redemption. So here's the paragraph. It had made him conscious know how unjust, how cruel he had been to Sybil Vane. It was not too late to make reparation for that, she could still be his wife. His unreal and selfish love would yield to some higher influence, would be transformed into some noble passion. And the portrait of Basil had painted for him could be a guide for him to guide through his life. It would be him what holiness is to some, and conscience to others, and the fear of God to us all. So this is very interesting about Dorian Gray, because he was looking for redemption the whole book. He attempted to be a better, innocent, pure person, but he didn't get it. Seems like it's his nature to corrupt himself. The harder he tried, the worse the outcomes. So he was always struggling and trying to decide which kind of moral standard should he actually subscribe to. So different from Dorian, the other character, Lord Henry, seemed to be very assertive from the beginning. He represented the pure evilness, one could say. So it was the bad influence, almost like an antagonist in the book, but it's complicated than that. So the part I want to share about Lord Henry was in the pretty late of the book when Dorian became really corrupted, and he tried to blame on Lord Henry, but Lord Henry basically refused. He doesn't take the accusation. So he replied Dorian in this way: "My dear boy, you are really beginning to moralize. You will soon be going about like the converted, like the revivalist, warning people against all their sins, which you have grown tired. You are much too delightful to do that. Besides, it is no use. You and I are what we are, and it will be what we will be. After being poisoned by a book, as for being poisoned by a book, there's no such thing as that." So Lord Henry always talked in the book. He talked lots of bad things, bad words, bad ideas. It could possibly influence Dorian as well, but it's complicated. So he's not the absolute villain to me. Also, he had his own struggles, like he had a divorce, and he was kind of sad after his wife left him, but he also concealed it. He's still like bragging about, I was just looking for pleasure, but I think low-key, like he also, he was upset and he was jealous of what Dorian was having. Yeah, so that's the three characters. And one interesting thing about this trio is about how their life developed. I think sadly, the one with moral standards like ended really badly in this book. Basil was murdered by Dorian Gray when he was trying to tell Dorian Gray to be a better person, trying to redeem for his sins. Then he got murdered in the middle of the book, like very early on. And he actually didn't do anything bad. I think he was a good person in his book. However, other people thought he was boring, and Dorian really couldn't understand him when he was trying to tell Dorian about the moral standards. So that was quite sad. And on the contrary, Lord Henry, who was full of like really evil ideas, he survived the book and he still had his life, luxury life, and also he did have a divorce, but he claimed that didn't affect him because nothing really matters but pleasure. So what really interesting is about the actual plot about Dorian Gray himself. he is very torn between the two sides or among many other standards. The picture of the Dorian Gray, the picture showed, so he regarded the picture as an image of his soul. And by looking at the picture, he realized he's really corrupted because the portrait, the person in the picture was really ugly and old and hateful. So in that way, he did think he's really corrupted. But actually, we didn't know if the picture is it's a good campus. In the book, it says the picture was an unjust mirror. So we don't know if the picture is the absolute measure for good and evil. But so some other people do think the picture is like a connotation or reference for the moral standards of Victorian time. When we look from nowadays, some of the standards are outdated. We don't subscribe to them anymore. But it did make Dorian suffer. So also, Dorian wanted to be good, but he couldn't. He tried, but he attempted a few times to remedy, but it's more like his nature was against him. So it's very complicated. It's really hard to judge him. And also, the book didn't lead us to judge. The book is simply talking about his struggles and how they develop, most like a neutral observer or neutral narrator. Yeah, it is a pretty interesting. So I don't think he's trying to criticize anything. It's just telling us the story itself. Yeah. Another thing I want to mention about the book is the language it's really beautiful, and it has lots of references of the plays, of the arts, and of Shakespeare. So it's really interesting to read. And in the middle of the book, it didn't advance the plot at all. It's just talking about random subjects. It's like there are characters talking about arts or putting out plays. So it's a very fascinating to me. You can only do this in the book. If it's a movie or it's a TV series, it will be boring or dull. But in the book, you're allowed to do it, because when we read them as words, you don't find that boring at all. I didn't find that boring. I found that's quite flexible when you tell the story through a book. Yeah. The last thing I want to mention would be the author Oscar Wilde himself. So he had a very interesting life, a tragedy life, but very interesting. And this book really reflected his own struggles and conflicts at his time as well. So if one relate the book to his own life, his own struggles, you would, I think I understand the book better by reading about Oscar Wilde's life. Two things I really want to mention is Oscar Wilde was in prison. So he was judged by the society, was condemned by the people. So he was a really famous playwright before he lost the trial and sentenced to prison. So that's why, if you like, lots of like in the book of the picture of Dorian Gray, and they were also talking about the crimes and the saints and the redemption. Another thing is very interesting is Oscar Wilde turned to Catholic in his very late years. So Catholic is also about sins and redemption and the punishment. So in this book, Dorian was looking for redemption. It's quite explicit saying that Dorian felt bad because he didn't get the punishment. When he didn't get the punishment, he felt he was not redempted. He cannot be good again. So maybe it's influenced by some of the Catholic ideas. Yeah, that's just my take. I haven't done a thorough research on this book. I'm just sharing my thoughts right now. So if I learn more things about Oscar Wilde in the book, maybe I will do another review. All right, this is my thoughts on the book. I hope you guys also enjoy the book.